Hey guys, my name is Johnathan Dane. I'm the founder of KlientBoost. We are a performance marketing agency. And I'm going to talk to you guys about some things that are probably going to be very important, not just in 2024, but also in 2023 as well, when it comes to lowering your customer acquisition cost. So get ready. Very excited to blaze through some quick ideas and quick wins for you that you can take advantage of pretty fast. So we already know that 2023 has not been particularly easy for us marketers, and you may have been asked to like lower your budget, but even have the same expectations or maybe even increase as well too. I hear that anecdotally, and I've seen the data as well too. So if you're one of the lucky ones that have actually had their budgets increase, you can ignore this entire presentation, just leave immediately because this is not for you. Um, but yeah, and we've also seen that a lot of the short termism has been favored instead of thinking about like long term growth as well too. And I'm here to help you say that you don't have to like go for one thing and then negate the other thing in terms of goals that you have as well too. Um, and efficiencies have been very hard to come by for all of us, right? Well, that's until right now. I'm going to show you some things that we've been doing for a few of our clients too. Now, before I even get started, why should you even give a crap about what I have to say? Why should you even trust us? We've been very fortunate to work with a lot of very well known, very high growth focused B2B SaaS companies. And a lot of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today have been from the data and the learnings from companies like this that we've been working with as well too. Now, while we want to balance both the short-term gains and efficiencies, like lowering your customer acquisition cost, we also have to think about what are the long-term implications of that as well too. So I want to give you a little holistic flavor of both worlds today, and then we'll also jump into the actual CAC lowering activities here in a few too. So we've launched something called KlientBoost Labs, where we're basically trying to challenge best practices to see if we can come up with anything that works better with our own first party data as well too. And one of the key things that we found early on was basically this thing called the landing page operation framework. You may not use a landing page, you may use your website, you may use lead forms and never send traffic from an ad perspective to your landing page or website. Completely fine. They all apply to this framework as well too. So the first thing I want to look at is number one, which is what we call traffic temperature matches. In the B2B world, and when we're talking demand, and I understand who my audience is, there's so many times where we blindly want to experiment or test new things. And it can even be things outside of the ad platforms. It can be sponsorships of newsletters or things like that as well too. And we're not quite sure what the quality of the traffic is. We wait until conversions happen, and we wait until there's enough ad spend to trickle in enough conversions. And then sometimes we wait for feedback from the sales team. And what I'm here to say is that it's way too late. You don't have to do that anymore. You can use a tool like Clearbit. Even Metadata has this as well too. And you can see that when you initially start getting the traffic to your landing page and you have a firmographic criteria around your MQL or SQL, you can see if you're even attracting the right type of traffic. This for us is what we did to then figure out we should not be spending as much money as we do on Google Ads because there's no native firmographic targeting criteria in there. We should switch our money over to Metadata, and we're actually a Metadata customer and very excited about seeing the results firsthand for ourselves too. So if you don't have a reverse IP reveal data platform like Clearbit, get one. Very, very impactful, and you can use things like UTM parameters on certain campaigns and seeing if you're even in the right ballpark of quality of traffic as well too. Which leads me to, you have to get a third-party audience tool. You cannot just rely on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, from a demand gen perspective and what they call the brand awareness objectives, is very expensive and very inefficient when it comes to having a goal of lowering your CAC. So here's the main play that we've been running that's been working really well for us, and we're seeing it for our clients and obviously Metadata customers as well too, is that you run B2B demand ads, demand gen ads on Meta, so Facebook and Instagram. And you're going to be able to get like $1.50 cost per click versus like the $8 to $11 on LinkedIn, depending on the ad format and the types of campaigns you're running. Obviously, it can actually be higher than that too. And from there, you basically choose a brand awareness objective. Your goal is just to get people to click through on the site as well too. And you're educating them obviously in feed with your content during that time too, and making sure that like you exist, so to speak. The next play then is that you retarget them on LinkedIn. And this is where you're creating audiences that have been visitors on key pages like pricing or demo. And they also are in line with your firmographic criteria or even your technographic criteria, which is another thing you can use to actually filter out. And the reason why you can only do that retargeting on LinkedIn right now is that third-party audiences are not well respected within the Meta platform, for example, that allows for an and function, meaning they have to be part of this firmographic criteria and they have to be part of this actual audience as well too. So it's much easier to do that on LinkedIn today. And I heard a bird that like these changes may be coming soon, so you can actually retarget and feel like confident in your retargeting on all the platforms with a third-party audience tool like Meta. So cool. So keep that in mind. That's a traffic portion first. The second portion is what happens once you get that traffic and you wanted to convert and you're actually running demos, for example. And that's a big part of like the only door that a lot of B2B SaaS companies have today. And so they need their demo door to perform better. They need more people to come through that door that, of course, are of criteria that they want. So this idea came from a study from Stanford, from these two guys named Scott and Johnathan. And what they did was they were curious to see if they can get more people to say yes by asking for a smaller thing first. And so what they did was they went to a neighborhood and they knocked on doors and they asked, hey, it's pretty busy on the street, in order to have less accidents and just more general safety, would you mind if we put a caution drive slowly sign in your front yard? And about 20% of the people said yes. They then went to an adjacent neighborhood, not the same doors, and they did the same test, but instead of this time, they actually said and showed a much smaller sign. And then when the person said yes to that smaller sign, because it was like completely non-obtrusive, right? They then told the person, hey, oh, by the way, we're actually out of those signs. Do you mind if we actually put in the regular size sign instead? And so by asking for a smaller thing first, they basically got a 76% amount of yeses, which is a 280% gain as well too. And this happens all the time. It's why you don't go to a bar and you immediately get down on one knee and propose. It's why you date, right? It's the same thing with sales as well too. And so we as marketers cannot be that aggressive and greedy without seeing like there's a way that we can do things in a fashion that allows us to meet the prospect or the net new customer in a way that they like to be met as well too. It's the whole reason why we have demos and why we don't get people to go straight to checkout and just buy it by themselves, right? There needs to be a courting period that happens as well too. So this is the same version. So we've been fortunate enough to do this on a lot of different B2B SaaS landing pages and have a lot of data as well too. And the whole play is you are asking step one questions that are not contact form related. So you're not asking for name, email, and phone number on the first impression of going to a landing page. You're actually asking for things that are related to what your sales team would already ask to qualify the prospect. So in the examples that I share, we basically use data from the forms to help the sales team have more information. And what ends up happening is something called compliance psychology, is that we as humans, if we start something, we're more likely to keep going and finish something than if we don't start at all. And so if we can get somebody to take action on a landing page form that has some pretty easy to answer questions, they're more likely to then finish the second step, which is the name, email, phone number, the contact form step, which kind of goes completely against common knowledge because we're being told to like have less amount of fields and make it faster, right? But what we're saying is the order of the fields matter more, and you can increase the motivation by making it easier to answer some of these questions up front as well too. And we found a pretty aggressive average lift when we do this as well too. It's why if you go to our website, you'll see the same thing. We have like a 4-step or 5-step breadcrumb technique like form on our website too. So we eat our own dog food in many ways as well too. The second thing we found is on the form headline too. So this example had about a 2% conversion rate, and then we changed it to a format that had an action, offer, and why. And we found a pretty substantial lift. And this wasn't the only example that we found either. There's a guide one. So just a little few changes and tweaks to the copy. And this is also going against best practices, is that a lot of people will tell you to focus on the headline or the subheadline of the landing page. All of our focus right now is on the form. We found the form and the offer to be the most interesting thing and have the highest gains when it comes to conversion rate increases. Here's another example. You'll see we're using obviously the breadcrumb technique on the step one, and pretty substantial gain as well too. So again, without increasing your ad spend, without having to necessarily cut your ad spend, or if you do have to cut your ad spend or marketing spend in general, well, how do you make up for that with gains in conversion rate as well too? So this now takes us to our button call to action formula. And it basically is very similar to what you just saw with the headline formula as well too. Within the form, by the way, there's a headline within the form, not the headline of the landing page. Important distinction. So because we recommend at least 2 steps on a demo offer, for example, we normally will see that the get my free demo will be the CTA on step 1, and schedule my free demo will be the CTA on step 2. You need to change them, obviously, because otherwise the person doesn't understand what the difference was between the 2 steps too. And what we've seen, again and again, very similar to the form headline data we had, saw gains in that. Pretty aggressive gains here too. And this leads me as well too, and a lot of companies do this, which is awesome, using tools like Calendly or Chili Piper as well too. But once you are actually able to get the conversion, the next step is making sure that your connect rate from your sales team to actually get in touch with this person is high as well too. And so don't do this. Don't say thank you for your submission or thank you for whatever, and then say somebody's going to reach out to you. You need to make sure that you keep the momentum going, because the motivation is really high from that prospect. And everybody has the data on what happens when we're slow at following up with our leads when it comes to sales. And so why would marketing not be part of the conversation, helping the sales team have a stronger connect rate? That's beyond me. So make sure that you have a booking mechanism on the next step. And if for some odd reason you can't figure out how to filter out the non-MQLs from the MQLs, or however you're determining quality, manually do it after the fact. Allow somebody to book, and then if they don't look like they're the fit from the outside, send them an email and ask them some clarifying questions, but take that calendar booking off. Some people may be upset or offended too, but your job is to sell more and close more and win more business. And so if you don't have a sophisticated way of only showing the Chili Piper or Calendly to your quality prospects, like, be creative and be scrappy until then too. The other thing I wanted to show you is on the personalization side, and we're almost done too. We ourselves, when we visit our own site, we have a lot of different spaces where we are actually able to personalize the experience by just doing a B2B logo usage, for example, right? And so what we did was we basically had on our homepage and our service pages, we also dynamically take a screenshot of the company visiting our site and then placing it within, and I'll show a metadata example after this. Actually, I'll show it right now. This is what happens when metadata visits our site, right? And so what we have is different parts of our blog and things like that. And we can track that these things not only convert better, we had about an 11% increase in conversion rate. We also found from a self-reported attribution perspective, they're like, that was really creative, that was really cool, and like it's so easy to implement. We use IP Stack and URLbox.io to dynamically take screenshots to implement as well too. So that's something that you guys should look into, that you can stitch together as well too. So that's a lot of like quick fire wins that you can get some low hanging fruit too. So let's review really quick the math if you were to take advantage of some of these things we just talked about. So let's set an example. Let's assume that you have a cost per SQL of $1,000. Your ad spend is $30,000 a month. That means your SQL volume is 30 a month. What would happen if you took action on some of the data that we just shared today? So let's say that you make sure that your increase in traffic, the quality increase of your traffic is actually being determined now, right? And so you're not paying for traffic on ad platforms that don't allow you to firmographically change your criteria. That could be a drop in 30% by itself too in cost per SQL. The breadcrumb technique can then add that 32% lift. We have the other lifts from the other ideas that you heard about earlier too. And what ends up happening is that you can drop your cost per SQL to $428. So this is basically keeping the same budget, but you're much more efficient now because you lower your customer acquisition costs as well too. SQL volume is going down, or is going up as well. Or if you do have to slash budgets, you can still beat your baseline in terms of volume, and you can then save half of your ad spend, for example, too. So a lot of different things that you can do relatively easily as well too. And that's essentially it. So if you want to see how this is all done in practice, again, We'll pay you $100 for your time because we're pretty confident in what we have to show. And you can scan that code. You can go to that URL at the bottom too, and you can schedule a time, and we can put it all together for you. All right. Thanks for watching my talk.